This video is about some of the extra care that you can give to newly planted trees. I'm going to first start with pruning very briefly because young tree pruning is going to be covered in the pruning chapter. But in general, once you've planted a new tree, you want to keep as much of its branches and leaves on it as possible because that's what produces sugars and helps to grow the root system, which is really important for establishment. You could take out dead, dying branches, and if you know for sure that you're not coming back to the tree for a few years, you can make some corrective structural pruning cuts. Otherwise, keep as much of that canopy on there as possible. The next thing I want to cover is tree wraps. I've also heard these called tree shelters. Sometimes they're called tree guards. So a tree shelter is a lightweight or plastic material that goes in a tube around the trunk. Inside this tube, you'll have higher humidity and it'll be warmer. So that can encourage additional growth because the tree wrap is blocking sunlight from hitting the trunk. It can protect from temperature extremes like sunburn and sun scald. It's helpful because it protects seedlings, so you can use smaller trees in projects like reforestation or revegetation and not have to spend as much money on the trees that you're planting into the landscape. One of the best things that you can do for a newly planted tree is to give it some mulch. And mulch is a material, any material that you put over the soil to protect it and to cover it. Some of the benefits of mulch include helping with water conservation, protecting the soil from erosion and runoff, protect the soil from compaction, and suppress weeds. Those are benefits that all mulches can provide. But with organic mulches specifically, it also improves the structure and quality of the soil. It improves the soil biology, and it provides insulating effects. There are two broad categories of mulches. First, you have your inorganic mulch, which is made from materials that were never alive, things like rock, plastic, stone. The benefit of an inorganic mulch is because it doesn't really break down, it lasts longer, except for something like plastic that will break down in the sun. An organic mulch is something that's made from previously living materials, usually plant materials. Because the organic mulches do break down, they have the extra benefit of adding organic matter to the soil, which has a whole host of benefits. If you don't know how organic matter impacts the soil, I recommend you watch the soil science videos on structure and biological properties. The drawback of organic mulch is that it will degrade over time. It's going to break down, contributes its organic matter to the soil, but because you're using it as a mulch, it means that you're going to have to reapply mulch every so often depending on your condition. That's laborious in its own way. So with mulch application, pick the best mulch for your situation. That might be an inorganic mulch. Ideally, spread it to 3 to 4 inches thick to get the maximum benefits like weed control, reducing soil compaction, and keeping the soil stable when you want to walk on it in wet conditions. You don't want that mulch to go all the way up to the trunk. Keep 4 to 8 inches clear, even just a little bit clear as long as you can see the trunk flare would be ideal to avoid too much moisture near that trunk. Do not put weed barrier or cardboard between your mulch and the soil, especially with the organic mulch. Let that mulch touch the soil so that it can break down directly into it. The number one factor in the success of a newly planted tree is proper watering. I'm not going to give measurements or rates or anything like that. You have to figure it out for your specific area. Because a new tree has a limited root zone, it can get water stress very easily if that water isn't being replenished as quickly as it's using it up. On the flip side of that, if you give it too much water, then the roots will rot. So figuring out exactly how much water that tree needs is going to be on a case-by-case situation. When a tree has just been planted, the goal is to keep the root ball wet and just a little bit of area outside of that because roots actively grow into moist conditions, and you want to encourage that root growth to go outside of the root ball. The best way to figure it out is to water the tree, then watch for signs of wilting, then water a day sooner than that. Not very practical, but that's the most accurate way of doing it. And as that tree continues to grow, you want the watering to extend further and further away from the trunk to continue to encourage that root growth into the surrounding soil. The best approach to irrigating any tree is to water less often, but to put down more water slowly so that it can get deeper into the soil. If you put down too much water at one time, it's going to run off, but if you can slowly put it on, the water will soak in deeper and deeper, and the roots will follow follow that moist soil. By getting the roots deeper, you're making the tree more resilient against drought. Then you want to wait some period of time before you water again because you want that soil to be able to dry out in between irrigation. If the tree is planted in a situation where there isn't irrigation available, you could purchase portable watering devices. What they're designed to do is to hold a reservoir of water and slowly release it into the soil. This will reduce labor because you can just come by and refill it every so often. It's convenient for street tree plantings, community forest plantings, or other situations where you want a slow drip without having to put in a full system. If you're doing large-scale tree plantings, like for a city or a construction project, chances are that the way you plant trees will be dictated by a construction document or detail called the planting specifications. Usually these are shown as a diagram with a bunch of accompanying text, and it'll tell you how many stakes to use, what kind of irrigation, how wide of a hole to dig. Since these drawings are sometimes made by landscape architects who don't know trees as well as perhaps they should, you will find yourself in situations where you may have to plant a tree in a way that's not ideal. In those situations, try to educate, but you may be required by the contract to plant according to that planting spec.